Treasure, and then getting home Alpha Girl ahead of Omen's Treasure. Back at the end, Touch My Hand with Poppy's Pal, and Vienna Sunset finished back toward the tail of the field as well. Time at 24:79. Some good sections, 5:20, 13:54 of very, very good marks. Off the inside, Jovial Gem was out like a cannon. Number one takes it out, was down in class, had been showing a bit of early burn, but really lit them up today. Daughter of Aston Rupee, Speedy Bella for Kay Brew and Bruce Russell locally at Sale, just lit them up through the middle. And although Jumbuck Bubbles was starting to cut the margin back and was closing quickly, the line came up too quick, and Jovial Gem with a great show of speed lands the running of race number 3 with some really good zip and early speed. Second of 4, Jumbuck Bubbles, Ben Joskett, Yinar South, hooked on Scotch, Aston Champagne. Third across the line will go the way of number 3, and that was Pretty Treasure for Craig Treasure at Hazelwood South by Shimmer Shine and Mapunga Gal. So the interim numbers coming through, they are 1, 4, 3 and 6 on race number 3. 1, 4, 3, fourth in number 6. Time for the journey, 24:79, just awaiting the all clear. You back the red, it was a fairly easy watch, some nice early speed. Only got home by 3/4, but was easily 4 or 5 lengths in front of the halfway. 1, 4, 3, 6 the numbers, just awaiting the all clear after the third, the impressive Jovial Gem.
Rightio, James, we just got those in time. Number 1, Jovial Gem at $5.20 and $1.20 beats. Number 4, Jumbuck Bubbles at $1.90. 3, Pretty Treasure at $2.40 and 6, Alpha Girl. Quinella $9.60. Exacta $15. Trifecta $94. And the first 4, $501. 1, 4, 3 and 6 at sale. And next greyhound race, 13 past 12. We go back to James. In fact, we've got a race at 4 past 12, but we're getting the grey areas underway with Corey today and George, Corey Smith from the Meadows.
On RSN Racing and Sport, it's time for the grey areas with Jason Adams and George Ferrugia.
The kid was a human dynamo.
Are you sure you're talking about George?
George of the jungle, friend to you and me.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Grey Areas with me. Doing the introductions, George Ferrugia, because we have a special guest, Corey Smith, in the studio. How are you, Smithy?
Going well, mate. Not going as well as you, though, George, because I've just noticed you don't need a chair this week. You're just sitting on your wallet after going 3 from 3 at Sandown, 3 from 3 at the Meadows, and there's no need for a chair.
Never have a chair here, mate. We always sort of push it to the side. But what about you filling it? How do you feel filling in for the great man, Jason Adams? Now, his star is rising, isn't it? I heard something the other week that he went to a restaurant and he ordered the penne matricana, and they brought out the Alfredo, and he gave him the old, do you know who I am?
No,
I've heard this from a couple of different sources. They could be wrong, but he is absolutely flying at the moment, and rightly so.
Well, I've torn the sub-vest off, and I'm Josh Bootsma, and he's Chris Judd, so it's not exactly going to work out for me, but I do have a restaurant story about Jason Adams, and it frustrates me, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Is he a very simple eater? Tell me.
He is a simple eater. He's a simple man. He knows what he likes, but we went out for a feed last week, and he ordered a well-done steak.
No.
He's one of those sort of operators, George, and I was a little bit disappointed about this, but we'll get back to a little bit more of that because Bendigo is fast approaching. We've got a few races this half hour, so we may as well get to Bendigo, race number 10.
You'll find that 13th race. Second line moving in. 6 to run here, scratching of 1, 5 a vacant box. 350 here for Interstar Fire, just holds the call. Green light is on. Ready. And racing. Winning the start was Interstar Fire. Away fast was Slippery Shark, and Broadway Icon kicks up underneath that pair. Back and forth was He's Hellbent. Out deeper on the track was Interstar Fire. Got a shuffle back from Blue Tick Nelson and Audition. Around the turn at Slippery Shark, kicking away up by 3 lengths. In second, Interstar Fire raising a second effort. Then Broadway Icon, but Slippery Shark is clear and won it from Interstar Fire. Third, Broadway Icon. He's Hellbent in fourth. Then Audition and Blue Tick Nelson in 24 and 32. 24.32 to Slippery Shark for Michael Franklin. Around 380 on the Paramutual. Mapindari Express out of Jada Rose.
Breaks a run of minor placings. Runner up at Ballarat on the 17th of Feb over the 390 out to the 425. Has been successful. Interim numbers are 4, 3, 2 and 8.
Brendan, thank you. 4, 3, 2 and 8. And we'll go back to the Sale Dogs at about 13 past to James Vandermark. But for now, Bendigo number 4, Slippery Shark, $3.80 and $2.30. 3, Interstar Fire, $1.90. No third div, number 2, Broadway Icon, and 8, He's Hellbent. The Quinella, $8. Exacta, 19. Trifecta, 46. First 4, 131 for 4, 3, 2 and 8. And the running double 2 and 4, gents, returning $27.
Yeah, we were talking about Jason having his steak well done. You need to have a word to him about this, mate. That's what you used to do when you were 5 or 6 years old, right? My mum, God love her, but didn't know how to cook a steak. Always, because I think it was I was speaking about this with someone yesterday. I think it was a generational thing where if there was a little bit of blood, you're going to get sick, you're going to get food poison. Like, goodness gracious.
I do have a confession. It was medium well, but for me, anything north of a medium, is well done to me. So no real interest in that. But what I do have interest in, Georgie, is the Australian Cup.
Yes.
And it was a cracking night of racing on Saturday night. A cracking 3 weeks of racing.
Was.
On the last 3 Saturdays that we've had at the Meadows. And you said to me, I want the ball here. I've got 5 takeaways that I have from the Australian Cup. And I said, don't tell me what they are. I want my authentic reactions and I want to get straight into them off the top because I'm keen to hear about them.
Now, it's 5 things... Dream Chasers / Australian Cup Carnival. So we're going to go back about 4 or 5 months and then obviously up until last Saturday. All right, number 1 is nobody should ever try to beat Corey Smith's after meeting beer record at the Meadows. Now, again, I get these little notes passed across my desk. What time did you leave the Meadows on Sunday morning?
About 4:30 a.m.
Wow. Is that a record for you?
Close to it. Close to it. Yep.
I thought my Uncle Mars was going to get the 3 votes on the night because he was rock and roll dancing upstairs and he was in a fair state. But apparently you've just nipped him at the line, sort of Mapunga Tully style. So we just got that silly one out of the way. Now, these ones are a little bit more serious. And again, you're going to go, yeah, we know this, George, but the Phoenix is the premier event, not just for prize money, but the way the event is held, the vibe on the track, everything about it. And look, the Australian Cup was great on Saturday, but there's something about the Phoenix that is next level. I'm not sure what your thoughts on it. I've spoken to a lot of people who hadn't been to the Dogs in a while that went to the Phoenix in the last couple of years and absolutely loved it. I think it is such a great showpiece for us to promote our sport to new people. And again, this year or this season was no different. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, people will say, well, the amount of money that goes into it, and that's a valid response. I think the Phoenix actually costs the industry less than the Melbourne Cup does.
Yeah.
But I think the Phoenix is now at a point where it's our greatest vessel for promotion, for marketing, for getting new people into the sport, for getting people engaged in the sport. I always talk about that tribal atmosphere on the night where you have the different slot holders that are all cheering their dogs, and it's a little bit of chaos, but it's a controlled chaos, and it's a chaos that we need more of, to be quite honest with you.
I think the simplicity of having that DJ there too just adds a great vibe when you're walking in. And for the naysayers of the Phoenix, give us a spell. I mean, when it first came out, everyone's keen to can things when you're trying something new. And yeah, maybe it went a couple of years and the Phoenix and the Meadows didn't get their 8 slot holders, but clearly that's not the case. So I think it's just an unbelievable result. So that's number 2, that the Phoenix is clearly the premier event. A lot of people might still prefer to win the Melbourne Cup. I'm not suggesting that for a second, but the Phoenix for me, if you're going to go to a race meeting, that's the one. Number 2, the Meadows has it absolutely right with their hospitality setup, the way their track looks visually, and the whole setup of the Australian Cup Carnival. I love the way you have moved the Rookie Rebel to the last week. I think it gives greyhounds an opportunity to still have a crack at the Australian Cup. Upstairs, I took friends there who had a small share in Groovebird. Absolutely loved the night. Just little things where you're going up to get a beer instead of coming to your table. Everyone knows what's happening. The food's good. Again, I just think you guys are the premier sporting thing for greyhound racing at the moment. And as I said, the track staff need a pat on the back because I think visually the track looks unbelievable. So that's number 2. That's over the last 5 or 6 months. Number four. Never underestimate big trainers in grand finals. I think it is another one we take away. The Britton brothers obviously having a great end to the night, but I just think Team Daly, these type of people, are just unbelievable when it counts. And I'm not to say that young trainers can't win big races. Obviously they can, but do you agree with that? I mean, they just seem to get their greyhounds absolutely spot on and cherry ripe for that period, especially if it's a 3-weeker.
Yeah, absolutely. You see that with the Thompsons, with the Brittons on Saturday night. You see it week in, week out in these big races. Yeah. Interestingly enough, going into that Australian Cup final, Jason Thompson was the only one that had landed an Australian Cup. And you look through the names, the Grenfells, you got Brittons, Ennis's, they're some really powerful kennels. They haven't managed to get an Australian Cup, but they were all in it and all had their dogs absolutely cherry ripe to go on the night. And we'll talk a little bit more about the training performance of Robbie Britton with Unreal Speed. I know that's been a big talking point, but it's impressive when you see these trainers going to work.
Amazing. And just before we go to Sale, my last point, and probably the most pertinent for me, I've been involved in the game. I'm 44 now. I think I was always in it from a young age, but probably
43 years.
We'll say 43 years. I've never seen a more dominant training performance than Jason Thompson over the last 5 months in big races.
I'd stretch that out. I'd go
probably all
14,
time.
15, 16, 17, 18 months. Like he has been absolutely dominant.
Unbelievable. But Corey, to win the Top Gun, the Melbourne Cup, the Phoenix, the Temley, and miss the Australian Cup by a nose is the best line of work in 4 or 5 months that you can ever see from a trainer. You've got to hand it to him, and it's not just from one dog. I know Explicit was dominant, but my goodness, Flying Zulu came out. Tim Zhu comes out and does his thing. I mean, you've just got to hand it to the way they have the professionalism shown, and their dominance has been incredible. Never seen anything like it in my time in the game.
Absolutely. We've got to head off to Sale race number 4 shortly. But I've been looking for a way to try and talk about the dominance of this Australian Cup, how good the quality was, how good the depth was. And I've just pulled together the top 50 ranked greyhounds in Australia right now. And I've ruled out the likes of Black Silencer, who's a stayer, and Explicit, who's retired. Mm-hmm. But this is a laundry list of who was in the Australian Cup. Tim Zhu and Flying Zulu ranked up the top for sprinters. Smooth Plain was first reserve. He's next with Vincent Bale and Excavation. The two that weren't on the list, Miss Envy, Dacey's Rory. Dacey's Rory was in the series. Then you've got Mapunga Tully, Kanya All Class, Big Energy, who was in the series, Deadly Avenger, and then you've got Warm Cockles, Lakeview Emily, a few others, and then Zipping Hopkins. Now, I don't think I've ever seen a race that has the rankings up that pointy end for a win and you're in sort of race. Top Guns, Phoenixes are a little bit different, but the quality of the field was absolutely unbelievable on Saturday night. But we'll talk a little bit more about that after race number 4 at Sale. Let's head up to James Vandermart for his call of the 4th.
So it's sad to see those words. Peter Eustace Memorial, of course, but great to remember his wonderful contribution to the racing industry. So they're moving in. Starting signal now for the 4th. Peter Eustace Memorial for the 4th on the program. And the favourite's going to bounce out of the 8 just ahead of the 1, and then not too far away to Parumba Cha Cha, who's the next best. Motivate's a big price at 12. There's a few hopes in this. Set to run now, race 4. They're all in, and the green light turned on. Stand by for a jump. Off they go, jumping pretty well from the centre. Kokoda Trail's going to bounce out and lead early to Parumba Cha Cha, and just getting up behind them, Kalinda Dougie. Not a lot of room there though, and they're followed by Bells of Victory, who starts to tack on and make some ground to the outside from Cordova, and then Indestruct Motivate, who's back at the end of the field, turning for home. It's Kokoda Trail, grabbed by Kalinda Dougie, who just idled up on the outside, did Dougie, and Kalinda Dougie's going to sprint on and win it. Kalinda Dougie by a length and a half at the end to Kokoda Trail, and third Bells of Victory. They scooted away to Motivate, then Indestruct, Parumba Cha Cha, Cordova and Cuban Lad. Time for the journey, 24 and 67 is a good gallop. For Steph Tyler, Kalinda Dougie pouncing down the outside, just was able to hold his nerve, leaving the back. There wasn't a lot of room on the rail behind the speed, but he just kept on persisting to hold that place, and eventually he got through, and then he's hit the line really well, steamrolling them down the centre of the track. A son of Tommy Shelby and True Kalinda for Steph Tyler at Boysdale. Second across the line was number 4, Kokoda Trail. Gail Elston, Catch the Thief, Supreme Outlaw, and Bells of Victory, who's often not too far behind Kokoda Trail when they meet.
Number 1, Kalinda Dougie, $2.10 and $1.10. 4, Kokoda Trail, $3.10. 3, Bells of Victory, $2.60 and 7, Motivate. The Quinella, $21. Exacta, $47. The Trifecta, $133. And the first 4, $786, 1437. Early quaddy there today, 5511, $505. And the running double, a pair of ones, has paid $22.
Don't forget to get in on the quaddy action this afternoon, because with Bet365 you can use Top Tote Plus to ensure you get the best payout for these races. Download the app to see why it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Chances are you're about to lose.
So back to... Turn my mic on. So back to George Ferrugia and Corey Smith.
Yeah, thanks, John. Obviously, before that race, Smithy was talking about the unbelievable depth in regards to the Australian Cup. We'll get to some SMSs soon. Time is flying by. But tell us about some of the turnover figures, Smithy. Apparently a really good result for Saturday.
Yeah, really blown away, to be honest, with the turnover of the Australian Cup Carnival in totality. The week one, this is all year on year, went up 2.7%, which is a nice result. You're happy with that. You see that, you say, oh, that's a tick. We must be doing a few things right. And then you get to week two, and it's up 6.3% year on year. And you go, all right, well, the chest is out now. I'm nice and happy. But then we get to week three, and we touched on the depth. We touched on the quality of races. We touched on the talking points. The variation year on year from 2024 to 2025 of week 3 of the Australian Cup Carnival up 24.9% for a total of $6.6 million wagered on that program at the Meadows on Saturday night, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I know there'd be plenty of people, plenty of participants in the industry that are listening, and that'd be really welcome news. And it seems like we're doing a few things right, and we're getting the benefits out of it in terms of wagering.
Yeah, obviously turnover massively important for our industry and all three codes. So to hear that sort of thing, hopefully we're slowly getting out of the shadows of what's been a pretty tough 12 to 18 months in terms of turnover. So thanks for those figures. They're fantastic. We'll go through a couple of SMSs, and of course, it's not grey areas without Tim from Kilsyth. Afternoon, boys. Just a couple of things. Firstly, tell me that Australian Cup wasn't a dead heat. That would have been the second dead heat in an Australian Cup. One stride past the post, and Tim Zoo was a half length in front of Mapunga Millie. He didn't even get her name right. Mapunga Tully. Come on, Tim.
We'll say that was autocorrect.
Yeah. Still a huge run by my little mate Timmy. It certainly was. And how good will it be to see Gold Force back racing for Denise Warren? Can't wait to see that dog back on track. Of course, it's had 6 starts for 5 wins. Its last win at Wentworth Park was in 29.42 back late last year. Mapunga Tully, 2 weeks in a row, had to stave off a very good greyhound from the Thompsons. Was incredible, Smithy. I mean, she... to the naked eye, when the race was developing, it looked like he was going to have enough in the tank to get over the top of her. And I know it's a little bit of a bob of the head, but you've got to hand it to her in the last couple of weeks. And she's had to do it 3 weeks in a row, where she's been unbelievable.
Yeah, she was probably a little bit unlucky to miss out on the Temley, in my opinion. And then she just comes out and dominates that night. She was the fourth. She was 4 lengths faster than any other dog on week 1, and then she follows that up with a phenomenal performance week 2. And then you could argue week 3 was even better, given the quality of the field. And box 4 isn't generally the sort of box that you want.
Yeah,
but with her running pattern, her running style, getting out in front and using a little bit of the track, she was always going to be hard to beat, but she certainly had to tough it out.
And Smithy, you got to hand it to her, because there was a lot of speed drawn to her direct right as well in greyhounds in 5 and 6. So Excavation and of course Deadly Avenger. She had to do everything right, and she did that. And that's what the good dogs do. There was a little bit of conjecture about whether she could back it up and how her form probably wasn't consistent when she first started. But she's turned into a mature race dog now, hasn't she?
Absolutely, she's turned into a mature race dog. She's a very, very good race dog, and probably been underrated for the last few months, but underrated no more. But let's get up to race 11 at Bendigo. I think it's Brendan Delaney calling for us today.
Ready, second line of Coconut, Oakland, Can You Enhance, Press Start and Gary on Stilts to move in. The second row, Filter forward. And we're ready for a start. Green light is there. Field is set. Favourite in green. racing. Winning the start was Aya the Slayer. Press Start was away well, is going up the shade, the leader. Can You Enhance around to make it a line of 3 just about. Gary on Stilts to 4th, followed by Slinger, Tinker, Pat out deep. Coconut Oakland's Aya the Slayer got shuffled back to last. Press Start the leader on the turn. A length and a half on Can You Enhance. Running onto the outside, Tinker, Pat. Press Start in front. Can You Enhance? Tinker, Pat try to close, but Press Start clung on. Beat Tinker, Pat, Can You Enhance, and then Coconut Oakland from Aya the Slayer. Gary on Stilts and Slinger in 24 and 39. 24 and 40 the time officially for Press Start. Back around a turn and back a winner. Had to dig deep late to hold off the late challenges of Tinker Pat and Can You Enhance, but Press Start was well tried for Peter Frost and delivers on that support by Bernardo out of Black Opium for the See the Dream Syndicate. Peter Frost at Heathcote. Interim numbers here on the 11th, the 6, 7, 4 and 2. A half length the winning margin. There was a neck between second and third, 24.40. They stopped the clock in.
So 6, 7, 4 and 2 there, Corey and George. 6, 7, 4 and 2. Press Start stated favourite at $1.70 for Pete Frost, $1.60 the place. No full divs as yet.
How's that for breeding? Black Opium and Black Magic Opal. My goodness, winning a race there, the 11th at Bendigo. We'll rip through some of these SMSs and we'll get to Horsham too. G'day, George and Corey. What's the latest track updates on Cranbourne and Terrelgan? I think GRV are going to come out with something very soon. I'm not sure if you've got any more information about that, but hopefully will be some positive news around Cranbourne.
Yeah, I'm not 100% across it, but I am getting the little the rumours filter through that there'll be some positivity coming very shortly. So hopefully that's not too far away for those that are definitely, they're hotspots. Hotspot areas for in terms of trainers and greyhounds and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be welcome news, I'd imagine.
Exactly right. JM from the Glen. Timmy Zoo knew I was on this week. I apologise to the Thompsons. If I back tally, then Timmy would have gone straight past and grabbed another big race. So yeah, Tim from Kilsyth is looking for you. And a nice segue here for us. How good are fields for the Horsham Cup heats on Friday night from Maddie? We'll go through some of these now and highlighting the first heat is Hotel Whiskey 1, probably back to a distance where he can just get out and go and be very, very hard to catch against Awesome Avenger. That's a good race.
Absolutely it is, and Fernando Phil is in it as well, yep. and if he shows his customary early speed, then maybe Hotel Whiskey 1 doesn't get it all his own way from the inside draw. We know that's probably not his ideal sort of setup.
Yeah.
But surely over the 485 metres, that's just going to suit him.
He should. Fernando Phil won it last year as well, going from back-to-back Horsham Cup. Heat 2, Zipping Hopkins, of course, who forgot that the lid's open in the Australian Cup final. He's just one of those dogs. It would be very, very frustrating for Connections because in terms of ability, he'd be able to match it with a lot of them. Up against the likes of Nangar Jim, who's been racing well, 29.85 winner at the Meadows more recently. And provincially, Lulu's Ride's been going very, very well. But Zipping Hopkins, that big, long Horsham Straight, Smithy, should suit him.
I would imagine it'd suit him right down to the ground. But when you're running those sort of first splits that he did in the Australian Cup, it's going to be tough in any race.
Yeah.
But if you can come out a little bit better, which I'm sure Connections are hoping for, I reckon he'll be hard to beat.
Absolutely. Tim from Kilsyth will be very happy with this next heat. Tim Zoo looking to back up. I'm not even going to call it a disappointment. His last 3 weeks have been unbelievable, Smithy. Obviously to win the Temlee and then his heat win in the Australian Cup were amazing, and he nearly won the Australian Cup. He nearly went back-to-back, only the second greyhound in history. He's going to start a short price favourite in the third heat.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Zipping Kai is probably the only other big name that races in these sort of races week in, week out. But it's a quality heat, as our good friend Matty said.
Stomping, I think in the fourth heat is an interesting runner. Obviously, he does probably predominantly his best work over 600 metres, but shows good speed up against the likes of Holden, Bale, Idyllic James, Bebop Jazz, Amron Tiger. Good little heat, that.
And Ethanol Volume, who's backing up from his rookie Rebel victory on Saturday night too. So be interesting to see how that drop in distance plays out for him.
How was Ethanol Volume's run? Just all from the first split of 904, which it really didn't show too much of that in previous runs, but it was fantastic. Heat 5 of the Horsham Cup.
This is the highest quality heat.
This is the one. Flying Zulu, Leo Bale, Joey the Jet, who's now in the hands of Anthony as a party, Matt Locke.
Motion Sensor won a heat of the Australian Cup. This is an absolute ripper. It's not far off being a quality of a final, this one.
Yeah. Flying Zulu just was drawn terribly in that Australian Cup. Absolutely. I mean, his form in the lead-up was as good as anyone in the countries, I'd say. I mean, 28.84 at Sandown, and then was narrowly beaten by Tim Zhu. And I don't think I've seen Flying Zulu ever run down, so he was a little bit stiff there, but that's a great way to end the Horsham Cup. Obviously, the winners and the 3 fastest seconds go through to that final.
And we obviously don't see Horsham in the nighttime slot very often, and I think the last time that they tried to do a night meeting at Horsham was back in December, and they ended up with 7 races and 42 nominations. A bit better this week, with the Horsham Cup obviously being the main focal point, but it kind of presents a question in my brain of whether you're trying to maximise wagering, which we've seen in recent times, wagering towards the back end of programs is better than the start of it, or even during the quaddie legs.
Yeah.
Is it worth putting a Horsham Cup into a night slot, or do you think they should run in them more traditional day or twilight slots?
I probably prefer twilight for Horsham. I think it's worked pretty well in the past. But probably for the Meadows, I know you were going to speak to me about what I thought about the Australian Cup at race 10. I'm not sure what your views are. I don't mind it at all, Smithy, as long as there's good feature races in the lead up. So we had Group 1 finals in 6, 8, and then the highlight in 10. I like it. I think it works well.
Yeah, there's plenty of different arguments. I know there's a lot of people that come up to me, oh, gee, you're running the Australian Cup at 9:55 p.m. Like, I've got to take the kids home. I brought them out to play on the jumping castles and I want to leave. The wagering is telling us that it is just so incredibly strong later in the program, and race 10 is where the feature should be.
Yeah.
But with races like the Horsham Cup, and obviously there'd be year-on-year sort of comparisons, and GRV always does these sort of looks into things and makes the decisions that are going to be the best for not only the wagering side of things, but event opportunities too. So it's always a bit of a balancing act, and I think everyone's going to have different opinions on it.
So it's a case by case, isn't it?
I think so.
But I think you guys got it right. I think GRV got it right with the 6, 8, 10 set up for Group 1s at the Meadows.
Just quickly on that, and this is a question without notice. Australian Cup Consolation, we ended up with 6 nominations for it because it's only the semi-final dogs that were eligible. Obviously, some dogs went elsewhere and that, and you ended up with a 5-dog field, which was a great spectacle. Smooth Plain was awesome, one of the best runs of the night. What do you do with a consolation like that? Do you try and expand it? Do you open it up to the heat runners as well? Do you try and get the money up to become a bit of a carrot too? What would you personally do with?
Yeah, I suppose you could look at both of those things. I wouldn't mind opening it up to the heats. Obviously, the greyhounds that made the semis and are more eligible get first preference, but. Yeah, if we want to get an 8-dog field, that's fine. But you're right. I think it was still a good race, still a pretty good betting race. So, yeah, I don't think we have to do too much with it.
Absolutely. We're not too far away from sale, so we'll get to that very, very shortly. But the other dog I wanted to quickly touch on was Tribeca, who was absolutely dominant in that feature maiden final and is heading towards a launching pad by all reports.
Yeah, big future, no doubt about it. I think we had stats from the week before where his run between the 100 and 200 was quicker than any of the Australian Cup semi-final runners, which is, for a young greyhound, I know there's less pressure on, but Smithy, for him to be doing that as a young age, if he can stand up and handle the heat of that first 100 metres against the good dogs, they've got something special.
Are you going to head that way with one of your dogs by any chance?
Yeah, I think so. I think Valenzuela will head there. He's not in Tribeca's quality, mate, so hopefully we don't get a heat so we can at least recoup some cash.
Plenty of prize money on offer throughout the launching pad, whether it's the final or the runways and things like that. But let's go to Sale for the first leg of the quaddie.
Heat 1 to kick-start the quaddie. 2:10 now. Texas Longhorn off that runners-up effort behind Strike at Riker last time as they're moving in. Last few being trapped away now for the 5th race of 12 out of Sale on a nice warm summer's afternoon. And they're set to run. The green light, they're ready for race number 5. Pretty even field, set now. Off they go, jumping well the reserve from the inside, Dr. Brooklyn, challenged by Spirit of Duke, who ambles up now and takes the lead, but immediately is joined by Texas Longhorn, and then going to third now, Dr. Brooklyn, who gets up on the outside with Kelly. Not too far away, Sam's Boy, then a break to First Mate, who's back toward the end with Magical Paws. As they turn, Spirit of Duke now takes Texas Longhorn, who's coming again. Spirit of Duke, though, draws clear late. Spirit of Duke won it quite nicely by 2 lengths at the end, running away, beating Texas Longhorn. Third in will be Dr. Brooklyn ahead of Callie, and then close up on the inside, Sam's Boy from First Mate, Sapphire Speed and Magical Paws toward the end of the field. Time for the journey. Clock will stop at around 24 and 89. Nice strong closing section. Spirit of Duke able to elevate and draw clear late over Texas Longhorn, with Dr. Brooklyn getting home into third placing. Those numbers confirmed now. It's 4 defeating 7. The 9 third, Dr. Brooklyn ahead of number 6, which was Kelly. So the interim numbers 4, 7, 9 and 6, 2 lengths by 1. And after jumping second, taking the lead off the back, was headed by Texas Longhorn by the looks mid-race, but with a response coming off the back, Spirit of Duke has been able to come clear for Peter Barry to win. 4, 7, 9, 6 those numbers, 24 and 89 the time, 360 and 180 the winner, $1.40 and $4.30.
We'll leave it there, guys. Spirit of Duke kicks off the first leg of the quaddie at the Sale Dogs this afternoon at $3.60.
Beautiful. Obviously, not much time left. Just got a quick SMS from Talgi, obviously, who won the Phoenix. The Phoenix will become the biggest race ahead of the Melbourne Cup, and I want to win another Phoenix. The buzz I got from the Phoenix, I didn't get being in a Melbourne Cup. So an interesting insight there from Talgi. Now, before we go, we've got a couple of tips from Sandown. Sorry about that Arsenal tip, everybody. We're on a bit of a streak with our obscure bet, and Arsenal just weed the bed.
A little bit Tom Melbourne-like Arsenal, I've been told. Just
I mean, they had
can't
to
quite
win.
get the job done when it matters, but are always there.
Yeah, don't worry. I gave it to some of my mates. But they had to win to keep in touch with Liverpool, and they lost 1-0. So we'll keep away from the EPL now that the AFL's starting. Now, race 2, number 2, Urana Cobalt. This is for Sandown tomorrow. One at the Meadows in 30 and 10, 3 starts ago. I think it's drawn well here. It'll sit in a nice position and be hard to beat. Also like race 5, number 1, Van Wyck. Been waiting for an inside draw here, and I think from the draw he'll be hard to beat. Interestingly, we see some of the betting agencies already have markets open for the quaddie legs at Sandown on a Thursday night, which is a good sign. So hopefully that continues. So there are bets. John, thanks for having us this half an hour. It's gone crazily fast.
Corey
Smithy.
Smith, great job from the Meadows. Thank you, Corey, filling in for Jason. And George, always, you're the human dynamo.
I think the Messiah's back on Friday.
The Messiah.
That's what he told me.
No, he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy.
He is.
Wasn't that from
We've got to
Monty
speak
Python?
to him about that steak preference, though. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Guys, thank you very much. We'll take a quick break and come back with more greyhounds with Brendan. Back to Bendigo shortly at RSN Racing and Sport.
We told you the Battlers delivered another Group 1, finding the Blue Diamond winner at $15.
Devil Knight from Tetris Tycoon Star.
They also found the Silver Slipper winner at $17.
They were too good.
And remember back in January, they found the Magic Millions double at over 200 to 1. The question is, why do you keep missing out? Aren't you sick of backing $2 favourites that get rolled? Aussie punting battlers have continued to deliver, and over 80% of those who trialled the battlers recently have extended long term.